What you just heard is played by a single track with the Subtracks machine. Subtracks is one of the source machines of Tonverk, and in this video we will explore how it works. To select the Subtracks machine, select an audio track, let's say track 2, hold function and press source to open the list of available source machines. Press yes on Subtracks and you will be prompted to select an instrument. Use up and down to scroll and the keyboard to preview each instrument. Notice that we are hearing a set of different samples per instrument. That's because the Subtracks machine allows us to load 8 samples, mono and stereo, on a single track as an instrument. Every sample is then loaded onto a separate subtrack, represented by the bottom row of the keyboard. Let's stop browsing for now and break down the pattern you just heard at the beginning of the video, which is solely living on track 1. I have the Subtracks machine loaded on track 1 with these 8 samples. These happen to be mono, but they can be stereo as well. Notice on the screen we are remaining on track 1, but the subtrack number above is changing as I press each subtrack. The machine is 8-voice polyphonic, 1 voice per subtrack, so multiple subtracks can play at once. What makes this machine powerful is that each subtrack can be sequenced separately. When we press record and open the sequencer, what we see here is the sequencer for the selected subtrack. Currently, we are on subtrack 1, so we are only seeing the note trigs for this subtrack. If I move to a different subtrack, the sequencer will follow. If you want to select a subtrack without triggering the sample, hold track and press the subtrack key. You might also want to use Step Edit, which is activated with this button. In Step Edit, the keyboard will light up the subtracks that are active on the green step. For example, on step 1, these subtracks are playing. On step 2, this subtrack is playing. And on step 5, these are playing, and so on. Notice that there's a dim one right here. This is indicating the currently selected track, which is subtrack 4, and not the active subtrack on the step. So try not to get confused. In Step Edit, you can easily add or remove subtracks just by pressing the key once, like this, and also micro-time them to your liking. Hold the active subtrack key and press right or left to nudge them slightly off-grid. Step Edit is also useful for single and multiplayer machines, particularly for editing chords. Now, in addition to having its own sequencer, each subtrack can have its own parameter settings on source, filter, amp, and modulation pages. For example, if I go on the amp page and select the subtracks, you can see that I have completely different settings for each subtrack. Same for the filter, including the second page. So make sure you are selecting the subtrack you want to edit while adjusting these parameters. The Subtracks source page is a little similar to that of the single player machine. We can play the sample in 4 play modes: forward, forward loop, reverse loop, and reverse. And also adjust the tune up to 5 octaves up and down. I'm setting some of the subtracks to play in loop or in reverse. Now on the modulation page, we have 1, 2 LFOs and also an envelope available for each subtrack. They're on the first 3 pages. For example, on subtrack 8, I'm modulating the cutoff frequency for the filter, LFO 1 speed, and also tune with the envelope. For subtrack 7, I'm modulating the tune and also the decay time. So with all these parameters, each subtrack can be customized to a great extent. Now, you might be wondering, what about the 2 LFOs at the bottom? These are FX LFOs that are reserved for the track's effects, and they affect the whole track. This leads us to the next important point, that all subtracks are processed together by the track's effects. For example, I have Dirt Shaper loaded on track 1 as an insert effect, and this is applied to all subtracks. If I turn up ascend or route track 1 to a bus, it will affect the entire track as well. For some effects, being able to process all subtracks together is great. However, for other effects like reverb and delay, you might want to have more control. This is when the Subtrack comes into play. Hold track and press the track's trig twice to access the Subtrack. Notice the 3 keys on top of the track number on the screen. That is the sign that we are now on the Subtrack. The Subtrack is an additional sequencer for the Subtracks machine to handle the shared parameters, mainly the FX parameters. And this sequencer can be used to parameter lock the effects. Open the sequencer by pressing record. Add a trig right here, and let's parameter lock the send level for the reverb. Hold the trig and turn up the send level. Let's also parameter lock the send level for the delay on the last 3 trigs. Let's have a listen. We can hear the reverb and the delay only appear towards the end of the bar. Now, in addition, on the Subtrack, if I press the modulation key, it will only display the 2 FX LFOs. As I mentioned earlier, these LFOs are dedicated to modulating the track's insert FX parameters. If I check the destination, these are the parameters for Dirt Shaper, the effect I have on this track. To exit the Subtrack, simply press any subtrack key. Lastly, let's talk about the ways to customize the samples. Let's say I wanted to use a different sample for subtrack 7. Hold function and press the subtrack key. This opens the sample browser on the SD card, so I can navigate to the sample I want to replace this subtrack with and press yes to load. You can also have fun changing the entire sound palette by loading a different Subtracks instrument on the same track. And it will make the pattern sound completely different. Alright, that's all for the Subtracks machine. Be sure to check out the video for the single player and multiplayer machine as well.